The great alien spaceport was alive with sound and movement. Giant ships floated in the docking bay, their metal hulls shining under the pale light of the twin suns. Merchants shouted prices, workers moved crates, and guards patrolled the edges of the wide landing zones. But today, the air felt different. A sense of expectation rippled through the crowd. Whispers passed from one person to another. "They say the human captain has returned." Someone murmured. "After 15 years, another replied, their eyes scanning the sky. High above, a massive warship slowly descended. Its engines glowed with a deep orange hue as it approached the docking clamps. The ship was old, battle-worn, its hull marked by scars of ancient battles. To the people of this world, it was more than just a machine. It was a symbol, the vessel that had once carried the man who saved them from destruction. Among the crowd, a young alien woman pushed her way forward. Her steps were fast, almost impatient. Her tall frame moved with the grace of a trained warrior, but her eyes held something softer, something personal. She was not here as a soldier. She was here as someone who had waited 15 long years. Her name was Liara, and once, long ago, she had been a frightened child on a burning battlefield. A child saved by the very man who now stepped off the ship. The docking ramp lowered with a metallic hiss, and then he appeared, Captain Elias Varan, older now, his hair streaked with gray. He wore the black and silver uniform of the human fleet. His shoulders straight, his face calm, but there was a heaviness in his eyes that had seen too many wars. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Some saluted, others shouted his name. But Elias did not smile. He scanned the faces, as if searching for something or someone. Liara froze 15 years, and yet she recognized him instantly. Every memory of that day came rushing back. The smoke, the fire, his voice telling her to run. She remembered the warmth of his hand as he carried her to safety. The way he looked back at the battlefield with a promise in his eyes, a promise he never got to keep. She took a step forward, her heart pounding. But before she could reach him, a line of armed alien guards moved in. Their armor was polished, their weapons ready. The lead guard stepped in front of Elias, his tone sharp. "Captain Elias Varan, by order of the High Council, you are to come with us for questioning." Gasps rose from the crowd. This was not the welcome anyone expected. Elias didn't resist. He simply nodded, his face unreadable. Liara's chest tightened. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. This was no ceremonial greeting. This was an arrest. She pushed past the bystanders until she stood just a few steps away from him. The guards tried to block her, but she raised her hand high, and in one swift motion, she gave the salute, the old human military gesture he had taught her as a child. The crowd went silent. Even the guards paused, uncertain. Elias's eyes locked on hers. Recognition flashed across his face, but it wasn't just surprise. There was something else, something like alarm. His gaze dropped to her arm. Liara followed his eyes and realized he was staring at the faint mark etched into her skin. A mark she had carried since childhood, one she had never understood. But Elias knew. She could see it in his expression. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say a word, the ground shook. A deep, thunderous blast rolled through the spaceport. Screams filled the air as smoke and fire erupted from the far end of the docking bay. Shards of metal flew through the air, alarms blared, and people scattered in panic. The guards drew their weapons, looking for the source. Elias turned his head toward the flames, his jaw tight. "This is not random," he muttered under his breath. Liara barely heard him, but she understood. This was no accident. It was a message, and whoever sent it had timed it perfectly with his arrival. Through the chaos, Elias took a single step toward her, his voice low but urgent. "Liara, we need to move." Her heart skipped. 15 years without hearing her name from his lips. And now, in the middle of fire and confusion, he was saying it again. She nodded without hesitation. For reasons she couldn't explain, she trusted him instantly, just like before. The guards shouted orders, trying to secure the area. But Liara and Elias were already moving, slipping into the smoke and disappearing into the maze of maintenance tunnels beneath the spaceport. Somewhere above them, the chaos continued, but down here, in the dim and echoing passageways, a different kind of danger waited. Because this reunion was no accident, and the secrets buried for 15 years were about to surface. The narrow tunnels beneath the spaceport smelled of metal and dust. Dim yellow lights flickered overhead, throwing long shadows across the walls. Liara followed close behind Elias, her boots echoing softly on the grated floor. She kept glancing at him, as if trying to confirm he was real and not just a memory. For years, she had imagined this moment, the day she would stand before the man who once saved her life. But she had not imagined it like this, running through smoke and shadows, while explosions shook the city above. They finally stopped in a small service chamber. Elias leaned against the wall, his breathing slow but heavy. He was older, his shoulders broader, but she could still see the same sharpness in his eyes. He didn't waste time. "You shouldn't have saluted me like that, Liara," he said, his voice calm but carrying an edge. "Why not?" she asked, confused. "It's a mark," he replied. "It tells the wrong people exactly who you are." Her mind spun. The salute had been a sign of respect, something from a different time, but to him, it was a signal, a dangerous one. She remembered the way his eyes had gone to the mark on her arm. "What is this mark?" she demanded. Elias hesitated, then shook his head. "Not here, not yet," he said, scanning the walls as if they might have ears. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Voices barked orders, and the metallic clank of weapons grew closer. Liara drew a small plasma blade from her belt. "I'll handle them," she said. But Elias raised a hand. "No, we move quietly," he ordered. She bit back a protest. It wasn't easy taking orders from him after so many years, but she followed. They moved deeper into the tunnels. Every corner they turned seemed to lead to another maze of pipes and wires. Finally, they reached a hidden maintenance hatch. Elias tapped in an old security code, one that still worked after all these years. The door hissed open, revealing a cramped room filled with dusty crates. Inside, Elias quickly pulled a worn satchel from one of the crates. He opened it just enough for her to see a small, black metallic device. "What is that?" she whispered. "Proof," he said simply. "Proof of what really happened 15 years ago." Her breath caught. The war was over, or so everyone believed. But his tone told her otherwise. "You're saying it never ended," she murmured. "It ended for the public," he replied. "But for the people on this list, it's still going on." "What list?" she asked. He looked at her for a long moment, then closed the satchel. "You're on it." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Me? Why?" she demanded. Before he could answer, a deafening crash came from the hatch they had just entered. The metal buckled under force as armed figures poured into the room. Their armor was black, their helmets marked with the insignia of the Royal Guard. One of them stepped forward, pulling off his helmet. Lyra's eyes widened. It was Commander Dravik, her old mentor, the one who had trained her in combat. "Step away from him, Liara," Dravik ordered, his tone cold but steady. "This man is dangerous. And you don't know the whole truth." Elias stood still, his gaze locked on Dravik. "Funny," Elias said quietly. "I was about to say the same thing about you." The air in the small room grew heavy. Liara looked between the two men, one who had raised her as a warrior, and one who had saved her as a child. She didn't know who to trust. Her hand tightened on her blade, somewhere deep inside. She realized this was not just a reunion, it was the start of a war she didn't even know she was already a part of. The standoff in the cramped room lasted only seconds, but it felt like hours. Liara's grip on her blade tightened, her mind racing. Dravik's eyes were sharp, searching her face for hesitation. Elias stood motionless, his hands away from his weapon, but his body coiled like a predator ready to strike. The first move came without warning. One of the royal guards lunged forward, swinging the butt of his rifle toward Elias's head. Elias ducked low, his counter swift and brutal, sending the guard crashing into a stack of crates. Dravik shouted for his men to hold position, but it was too late. Chaos had already erupted. Liara spun, deflecting the strike aimed at her side. Her training took over, every move sharp and precise. But even as she fought, her eyes kept darting toward Elias. The way he moved was different from any soldier she had known, efficient, but with a strange sense of restraint. He was fighting to disable, not to kill. The fight was over almost as quickly as it began. Two guards lay groaning on the floor. Another scrambled back toward the hatch. Dravik stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You're making a mistake, Liara," he said, his voice heavy with something that almost sounded like regret. Elias didn't give her time to respond. "Move," he ordered, already slipping out through a narrow side passage. Liara hesitated only a second before following him. The passage was dark, the air heavy with the scent of old machinery. Pipes lined the walls like the ribs of some ancient beast. They moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Somewhere above, the muffled roar of the spaceport hinted that the chaos had not yet ended. As they climbed a set of rusted stairs, Elias spoke without looking back. "Dravik wasn't lying about one thing. You don't know the whole truth." "Then tell me," Liara demanded. 15 years ago, he began. "The war ended for the public, but there were unfinished battles. Against who?" she asked. He glanced over his shoulder, his expression grim. "Not against who," he said. "Against what?" They reached a heavy maintenance door. Elias punched in a code, and the lock clicked open. Beyond it was a long tunnel stretching into darkness. As they stepped inside, Liara noticed faint markings on the walls, human military codes mixed with alien symbols. She touched one, frowning. "These are warnings," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Markers from the old resistance network, the one that was erased from history." They walked for what felt like hours. The tunnel twisted and narrowed, until finally they emerged into a vast underground chamber. Dim light filtered in from cracks high above, revealing a forgotten war shelter. Old banners hung in tatters, broken weapons lay scattered on the floor. "This was one of our last strongholds," Elias said quietly. Liara could feel the ghosts of the past here, the weight of battles fought in secret. He crossed the room and knelt beside a metal chest. From it, he pulled out a small holographic projector. The device flickered to life, casting a rotating list of names into the air. Liara stepped closer and froze when she saw her own name glowing in the center. "What is this?" she asked, her voice low. "It's the target list," Elias replied. "Every person on it was marked during the war, either for protection or elimination. And me?" She pressed. His gaze met hers, steady and unblinking. "You were." "Both," before she could ask more. A sudden noise echoed through the chamber, the sound of boots on metal. Liara's heart skipped. "They found us," Elias said, his voice cold and certain. And then the shadows along the far wall began to move. Asterisk shapes emerged from the shadows, moving with an unnatural stillness. They were not soldiers, at least not living ones. Their armor was dull and dented, their faces hidden behind cracked visors. When they stepped into the dim light, Liara felt her chest tighten. The figures were moving like machines, but their steps were too deliberate, too human. Elias stepped in front of her, his hand hovering over his weapon. "Don't look them in the eyes," he said quietly. Liara's hand tightened on her blade. "What are they?" she asked. "Remnants," he answered, his voice grim. "Soldiers from the war, but rebuilt, repurposed, controlled." One of the armored figures tilted its head toward Liara. Its visor glowed faintly, scanning her. A distorted voice crackled from within the helmet, repeating a single word: "Target, target, target." Before it could finish, Elias raised a small black device, the same one from the satchel, and pressed a hidden switch. The device pulsed with a sharp blue light, and the figures froze mid-step. "They're not dead, are they?" Liara whispered. "No," Ilias said, slipping the device back into the satchel. "And that's the problem." He turned to her, his face serious. "That mark on your arm, it's not a scar, it's an identifier." "Identifier for what?" she asked. "For a genetic key," he said. "Something they need to fully activate whatever's left of the remnant program." Her mind spun. "I'm part of their plan?" "No," he replied. "You are the plan, before." She could respond. The sound of more boots echoed through the chamber, this time heavier. Faster, the royal guards stormed in, led by Dravik. He stopped at the sight of the frozen remnants, his eyes narrowing. "You brought her here?" Dravik said to Elias, his voice low with anger. "You think I had a choice?" Elias shot back. Dravik stepped forward, ignoring Elias, his gaze fixed on Liara. "You don't understand what's in your blood, Liara," he said. "If they get to you, it's over." She glared at him. "Then maybe you should have told me 15 years ago," she said. Dravik's jaw tightened. But he said nothing. The frozen remnants began to twitch, their armor plates grinding against each other. Elias cursed under his breath. "They're rebooting," he said. "We have to go." Dravik didn't argue. For the first time they moved together. The three of them dashed toward the far exit, the sound of reactivating machines chasing them through the echoing chamber. They burst into a narrow service corridor. Dim red lights pulsed along the walls, guiding them deeper underground. Elias took the lead, his voice sharp and urgent. "We have to reach the relay tower," he said. "It's the only place I can transmit this data off-world before they shut down the network." "What data?" Liara asked. He glanced back, his expression unreadable. "The truth about the war and about you." The service corridor stretched on like an endless vein beneath the city. Faint vibrations in the walls told Liara the remnants were still moving somewhere behind them. Elias led the way with steady, measured steps. Dravik stayed behind her, silent, but watchful. She could feel the tension between the two men like a current in the air. After several minutes, they reached a junction. Elias stopped, scanning the dimly lit signs. "This way," he said, turning left. Dravik didn't follow. "No," he said firmly, pointing right. "The relay tower is closer if we cut through the barracks." Elias shook his head. "That's exactly where they'll expect us to go." Liara looked from one to the other. Her instincts screamed that there was more than just a difference in strategy here. "You've been leading us in circles," Dravik said to Elias, his voice low but sharp. "You think I don't see it? You're not trying to get to the tower, you're trying to keep her away from it." Elias's eyes narrowed. "And you? You've been following us since the docks without sending word to your people. Why?" The corridor fell silent, except for the distant hum of the city above. Lyra's hand drifted toward her blade. "If one of you is going to betray me," she said quietly, "I'd rather know now." Neither man spoke. Instead, a faint sound reached them, the muffled thump of boots approaching from the left passage. Elias reacted instantly, pulling Liara down a side stairwell. Dravik followed, his expression unreadable. They emerged into a long chamber lined with old lockers and weapon racks. Dust coated everything. "This is one of the old human garrisons," Elias said, glancing around. He crossed to a control panel and began working on it. Liara turned to Dravik. "Tell me why I'm on that list," she demanded. Dravik met her gaze. "Because you carry something rare, something neither side should have," he said. "Half your blood comes from a human donor program that was supposed to be destroyed." Her mind reeled. She wanted to ask more, but a loud clang cut her off. The far door burst open, and a group of royal guards flooded in, weapons raised. Dravik's jaw clenched. "They're mine," he said, drawing his sword, without waiting for a reply. He charged forward. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward a hatch in the floor. "Move now," he urged, but as she glanced back, she saw Dravik fighting with a ferocity she had never seen before, not just holding the line, but buying them time. They dropped through the hatch into darkness, The ladder below was slick with condensation. The air thick and damp. When they reached the bottom, Elias paused, his voice softer now. Dravik may be dangerous, but right now, he's the only reason we're still breathing. Asterisk. The tunnel at the bottom of the ladder stretched into darkness. Moist air clung to their skin. Carrying the faint smell of rust and old oil, Elias moved quickly, his flashlight beam cutting a narrow path ahead. Liara followed, her mind tangled in questions she didn't have time to ask. Somewhere far above, the muffled echoes of battle still reached them. Dravik was either still fighting or already gone. They pushed deeper underground. The walls began to change. Smooth metal giving way to rough stone. Faint etchings glimmered. Under the light, symbols from both human and alien cultures, carved side by side. This place is older than the war, Liara whispered. Older than both our people, Elias replied, not slowing his pace. Finally, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. In the center stood a towering relay spire, its surface covered in vines and dust. It hummed faintly, as if waking from a long sleep. Elias's expression tightened. If I can link the device to this tower, the truth will reach every system in the sector, he said. And what happens after that? Liara asked. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. Then we see who wants peace and who wants blood. He stepped toward the spire, but Liara caught his arm. You're hiding something, she said. This isn't just about exposing the truth, is it? His silence was answer enough. Her eyes narrowed. You don't expect to survive this, she said. Elias's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Before she could speak again, a deep vibration shook the ground. The far wall of the cavern split open as a massive figure stepped through. It was a remnant, but not like the ones they had seen before. This one was larger, plated in thick armor, its visor burning with crimson light. Behind it, smaller remnants moved into formation. Blocking every exit, Elias pulled the device from his satchel, his voice low but urgent. When I give the signal, you run to the spire and connect this, he said, pressing the device into her hands. Liara shook her head. I'm not leaving you. This isn't about me, he replied. It's about ending what they started 15 years ago. The massive remnant stepped forward, its voice a low, mechanical growl. Genetic key detected. Capture priority. Lyra's pulse thundered in her ears. The air felt heavier, as if the cavern itself was holding its breath. Elias reached for his weapon. This is our last marks, Liara, he said. One way or another, it ends here. The cavern erupted into chaos. Blinding flashes of light filled the air as plasma fire tore through the darkness. Elias moved with precision, every shot placed to keep the remnants away from Liara. The massive armored leader charged forward, each step shaking the ground like thunder. Liara clutched the device to her chest. She wanted to fight beside him, but his words echoed in her mind. Run to the spire. She darted between the smaller remnants, her blade slicing through weak joints in their armor. The spire loomed above her, ancient and silent. Dust fell from its surface as if it sensed her presence. Behind her, Elias was a storm. He fought with the desperation of a man who knew he would not see another sunrise. Every move was meant to give her just one more second, one more chance to reach the tower. She reached the base of the spire. Her hands trembled as she found the hidden access port. The device clicked into place. A low hum filled the chamber as the spire came alive. Light raced up its length, shooting into the cavern ceiling and beyond. A signal sent to every corner of the galaxy. The massive remnant turned toward her, roaring in mechanical rage. But Elias was already moving. He slammed into it with everything he had, driving it back toward the collapsing wall. The ground shuddered as debris fell, sealing part of the cavern. Liara's heart stopped when she saw him stumble. His weapon clattered to the ground. She ran toward him, but he raised a hand. Don't, he said, his voice weaker now. You did it. You finished what we started. The smaller remnants froze where they stood, their lights fading. The leader's visor flickered once. Then went dark. The war, the real war, was over. Elias dropped to one knee. Liara knelt in front of him, tears blurring her vision. Slowly, she raised her hand and gave the same salute she had given as a child, the gesture that had brought them together again after 15 years. Elias looked at her, and for the first time in years, he smiled. With the last of his strength, he returned the salute, and then his arm fell to his side, his eyes closing as the light from the spire bathed them both in gold. Above them, the signal raced across the stars, and somewhere far away, people would see the truth and remember the human captain who never stopped fighting for them.